September 12th, 9:14 a.m. in the George Field Reunion Hospital.
Hello. I'm Bev.
And the world smiles with you.
Yeah, there's some, I know the guy didn't sing that song.
Blaze.
In fact,
Different people involved.
the records my dad's got, Jimmy Durrell. He's still saying.
That's all this happening. The flag's all way all over. This is what I do not remember going upside down. See, I'm so excited about seeing it. There's hospital, but I've had others verified. I wish it came up on order.
Just a couple people down. We're not really open yet. Open at 9:30. We have some early birds.
And a couple of days later, I got a call. There he is.
Would not be around, you know. So she surprised everybody. So I cannot give her this picture, but I'm going to let her have her picture made with it. But if she would like one, my son will make her one. There is a picture in here that I borrowed the negative from this guy because he got a better shot than we did. We rented an airplane at the airport to fly in pursuit of taking pictures of Mom when she was in the air. So this tells a little story about Mom's trip last year.
Oh, how nice.
My goodness.
My grandson, I have my grandson, they'll be crazy about that.
He's going to fix you up one. We'll mail it to you. Okay. So,
Beautiful. What a nice.
Last year, was it last year or the year before, we found a picture of Mom and Lieutenant, the two guys that got you to do the cadet club, who were they?
Preston and Hendrick.
Preston and Hendrick. So we blew up it was black and white, we blew up 11 by 14, and Mike Mattis and all the guys that were here signed their name along that, and they had taken these pictures, CNN had taken all these pictures that Mom had and copied them. And we were so sure we would see some of these things on that CNN, but they shortchanged us. So she's going to go back again. They're going to be
They promised to enter for that club, and you know, because we didn't have anything about at the time, and that was the thing we were wanting. So then this lady that they're shopping with, and she's an author and on the way around, and she called them up to go and told them about it. And they said, well, if we have one thing this year, we can put it. And then we were going to, and then Di happened to have her accident, and they said, no, we don't do it for 2 weeks at least, because Mama Teresa said that father might have dead during the war, you know.
They need to photograph you.
I'll send you all together.
Yeah, she's
No problem.
Just to show them that we do something up there.
There's Mom, who was the main hostess at the Wet Shop.
I'll get Charlie's address for you. How are you? You're looking pretty good today. You all right? Did you get rested? Oh, tell me you want a room. Yeah. She married a little boy.
There's where the cadet club was, going in to visit.
I want to ask.
There they come downstairs, cadet club in the living room.
All claims can be in.
Adam, here's the other claim.
Daddy, you want some punch? Mickey?
That lesson has
Yes,
blues.
please. Marilyn brought you, didn't she? Marilyn brought you, there's a couple chairs, one in on each side of the, and then,
I always say you're lucky to be here tonight.
The only thing I can say is, once you meet,
Oh, you can go past it, no
I live right here in Minnesota, Vice President. We all are lucky to be back. I got home and came to work for us.
she won't have any confidence.
Out here in real life.
Camera something, Will.
Get a lot of light. Does yours show a lot of light?
Well, you're picking up from the mirror.
Oh, he'll be all right. He won't be there.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, that's good.
Tell me, Mary Ann, but don't look just right.
All right.
Okay, one in a row. Smile for me.
It's ready to go?
Linda, Jim,
We'll get a little
Mom,
closer. Ready? Say cheese.
Colonel, and Linda. You can move now.
No, he's taking.
Oh, he's
All right, now we got it. Now we're sitting. Linda says, you just wait.
There he is.
5 minutes later, the dude's, 5 minutes later, the dude's got his phone in his mother.
But I said, the tallest guy there.
Good, clear pictures.
Isn't it though?
Taken 54 years ago, it is, right?
I know.
Harry Conner
Says
Jr.
airport's got some visa
again
money.
in Knoxville at a conference.
Excuse me, please.
Excuse me. I went to a lot of trouble to
No,
find
that's
his
the next time she right in the middle of the floor.
tickets and everything. We're
Thank you.
gonna
I'll
have
be here
to
listening.
drive over there the same evening,
You don't have to make
which
a
was about a 2-hour drive.
more than pilot.
Well,
That's what I like to do.
right before he comes home, I picked up the Christmas tree that day and I had it laying out in the driveway and I knew.
Okay.
Make sure you got a good one. Allie always says, take two, make sure you got a good one.
Mom, Jim, and Linda. Steps to the old cadet club.
Mary Ann's water all over again.
at the Elks in Lawrenceville. There's our group having a buffet at the Elks in Lawrenceville in 3 minutes. There's our group having a buffet at the Elks in Lawrenceville in 3 minutes.
One more? Don't tell him how much you look at me on Sunday.
Okay, you say so.
2 shots.
Huh?
2 shots. In case Paul's got his eyes closed.
Well, I'll just poke 2 holes in the paper.
I'm gonna stay in there.
Well, I'm learning more about you all the time, don't worry. If my father was still alive, he'd probably divorce you. You're too frisky.
Well, look at the women he used to love whenever we had the store in California.
Okay, Mom, now shut your mouth.
He's not even gonna give me the second chance.
Well,
One more
it's got to
shot.
juice up a little bit, girl. My battery's getting low.
That's all right. Why didn't you bring an extra battery?
Because I didn't know you were going to be so gay.
We have.
That's right. Almost 3 and 1.
They come a long way.
Okay, one more time, Mother. That a girl. Now just keep your mouth quiet now. That a girl. Good. 1, 2, 3. Good. See?
There's
I always
Allie
get
with
her
Abe
mouth
and
open.
Mary.
Yeah.
Almighty God, you have given us this good land for our heritage, and we humbly ask you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and fed to do your will. We ask that you bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogancy, and every evil thing. Today, as we especially gather and commemorate our fallen dead, Please join me with the singing of the national anthem.
I'm retired. I know that.
Okay, you can start raising the flag. Detail, come to present arms, please. Present arms. Release the music.
See by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam. Whose by stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, around which we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets they clear of bombs bursting in air gave clue to the night that a flank was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
March one, ready, aim, march! Order arms.
Basically the same airplane.
But one of them is bigger.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Because it was painted.
Sorry, the voice didn't get in the air soon enough. Didn't have clarity, so they'll be flying by just a few minutes or a few seconds, I'm sure. At this time, I want to welcome you all to George Field,
Well,
6th
I
reunion.
might be wrong.
Basically, class reunions and everything. And, while we're waiting for a flyby, you want to go down?
They should be flying by in some formation.
Are those SNJs or what are they?
Well, she says one of them is an SNJ, the other one is an AT-6, but they're basically the same aircraft.
The SNJ was called the Navy, didn't it?
This time I'll turn the microphone over to
We can walk over actually.
Was it?
done a tremendous job the last 6 years.
Canadians
I think
called
we'll
it
give her a
something
nice
else.
hand.
Yeah.
There was still an AT-6.
We can't help but take this
I'm trying to hear.
The media, Colonel Morgan, Linda. I'm sure there's American Legion, BFW, Colonel Campbell, and many of you who have supported us with this. Also you that came out for this. We thank you very, very much from the bottom of our hearts. This is an exciting time for us each year. This year especially because we have someone so famous amongst us. have come a long way with our reunion. We decided that there is so many, many people in the area that are much younger than we are, don't know much about George Field and what was here in 1942 and 46. So this is one of the reasons why we have put this monument here in memory of those who worked here through my research. But not everyone can come, as we all know. Many are in their 80s. Colonel Mundy, who was here when the field was being built, is, I get confused because his birthday's same day mine is, but he's born 1905. He's still living, and we hear from him, and he says that he appreciates what we are doing for George Field and sends his greetings and best wishes to everybody. We have a lady also in our midst, which you will be seeing a little later. She's 102 years old. She was our cadet mom in Vincent, Indiana, when World War II was on. We had U.S. clothes around for your veterans. We had officers' clubs, but when the cadets came here, they had nowhere to go for their rest and relaxation. So they got Mom McEachran to manage a home over in Vincent, 502 Broadway, and this is where the place is over. We see quite a few strangers in our midst today, and we're so thankful that you all come. I think I said enough, so thank you for coming, and God bless you all.
Lee, you want to come forward and be ready? At this time, I'd like to recognize the Bridgeport American Legion Post 62 for showing here. Marshall Post number 90, American Legion. DFW Post 5975 for Marshall. For Lawrenceville, Post 28, SAL. Longman Post 30, Lawrenceville Post 2244. Help with this home. Lee, you want to come forward? Had I, Laura Post also recognized here today. Roberts Post 69. Now, I'm going to go on big bed. I'm your flag, Lee. Afternoon. I am your flag. I was born on June 14th, 1777. I am more than just a cloth shaped into a design. I am the refuge of the world's oppressed people. I am the silent sentinel of freedom. I am the emblem of the greatest sovereign nation on earth. I am the inspiration for which American patriots gave their life and fortune. I have led your sons into battle from Valley Forge to the bloody battles of Iwo Jima to the sands of Desert Storm. I walk in silence with each of your honored dead to their final resting place beneath the silent white crosses row upon row. I have flown through peace and war, strife and prosperity, and amidst it all I have been respected. My red stripes symbolize the blood spilled and the glorious nation. The white stripes signify the early fear of Gentile residents who lost their sons. My blue field is indicative of the God's heaven under which I fly. My stars clustered together to unify 50 states as one for God and country. Old Glory is my nickname, and I proudly wave on high. Honor me, respect me, defend me with your lives and your fortune. Never let my enemies tear me down from my lofty position, lest I never return. Keep alight the fires of patriotism. Strive earnestly for the spirit of democracy. Worship eternal God, keep his commandments, and I shall remain the bulwark of your peace and freedom for all mankind. I am your flag. Thank you, Lee.
Now, I've got two speakers today. Both of them have so many titles. I'll just give you the highlights of some of them. Out of Post 69 Robinson comes the man that has served in the chairs at Post 69. He's a lifetime member of the American Legion. He has served the 5th Division. He has served on many committees, especially the POWMIA. At the present time, he's Assistant Sergeant at Arms for the Department of the State of Illinois. And at the present time, he is running for the high office of Senior Vice Commander of the State of Illinois of the American Legion. He's the man that's one of the American Legion, one of the at this time, I can introduce him to Jack Johnson, Post 69.
WW2 SALs. I was told up here that my speech was an hour and 40 minutes and I had to cut it down to 5 or they were going to escort me off, so we'll do it that way. I'd like to introduce this as it's a very solemn ceremony, and I'd like to do it today. Is a solemn ceremony occurs annually and will sorrowfully live in infamy. Is in honor of those who enlisted and died defending this country. It is also a time to honor those who survived. Also, we must never forget our POWs and MIAs, and those men and women with families on the home front who struggle against impossible odds to preserve and protect the ideals of liberty, freedom, and justice, not only for their fellow Americans, but for freedom for loving people all over the world. And we owe each and every one of them a debt that can never be fully repaid. Let us never forget the courage and bravery in the service of those who fought to protect us, for defending the things that we hold so dear today. That concludes that, and this one was very appropriate, I thought, and I feel like I have to read it. This was found on an American soldier in Korea. On his body, he was dead in September of 1950. And it's very good. I like it. I believed all of this. Last night from the shell hole, I saw your sky. I figured right then they told me to lie. Had I taken the time to see the things you made, I have known they weren't calling a spade a spade. I wonder, God, if you'll shake my hand, somehow I feel you will understand. Funny, I had to come to this hellish place before I had time to see your face. Well, I guess there isn't much more to say, but God, I sure am glad I met you today. I guess the zero hour will soon be here, but I'm not afraid since I know you're near. The signal. Well, God, I have to go. I like you lots and I want you to know. Look now, this will be a terrible fight. Who knows? I may not come home tonight. Though I wasn't friendly to you before, I wonder, God, if you would wait by your door. Look, I'm crying, me, shedding tears. I wish I had known you all these years. Well, I have to go now. Goodbye. By strange sense, I met you. I'm not afraid to die. I conclude that my love on the best we have. Thank you people for having me here. It's been a great honor. You have a great day and always tell our people to sit here. Enjoy our time. It's great.
43rd President Auxiliary 3 times. She's been post-president of post 69 5 times. Jane, I congratulate you. Also, I have a lady from Florida Post. She is a past auxiliary president, Doris Hill. I've been trying to get a World War III started here between my two speakers. One said he's going out to the other, and I told them they better keep their eye on my Sergeant Lawrence, because one 10 seconds over what he's allowed the time was, he might be going out here feet first. Anyway, my next guest, I don't know, he's not bullheaded, but when he sets his mind to get something done, he's going to do it. He camped on Jim Edgar's doorstep for about 3 weeks, and finally Jim gave in to him, and he got April 9th as recognition day for the POW-MIAs. He was the man who put together a big parade in Mount Vernon, Illinois, 3 years ago with the help of Jack Colton. The biggest masses of colors for POW-MIA days that ever took place. With the help of George Ryan, our Secretary of State, he's the man responsible for having the POW-MIA stand today. At the present time, he's serving on the committee of the POW-MIAs for the American Legion Department of the State of Illinois. And if you want anything done, all you got to do is call on him. If he believes in you, you'll get the job done for him. Besides, he's a POW himself. He spent 17 months, 2 days of hell. This time, I'd like to introduce you to Bill Hill from Florida, Illinois.
Well, mine's only going to take about 2 hours, not quite as long as Jack's. I'd like to thank all the American Legion, VFW, SAL, and all that showed up today for this. You know, I was told back a few years ago when I was younger by some older people that, I'm looting all your paper, that, here's a check. Maybe that's mine. Okay. That once you grow older, you're going to start reminiscing about the older times. Well, I didn't hardly believe it, but I do now. Because I have been records thinking about the times I was in school. I went to a small school down in southern Illinois. It wasn't a country school, but it was a small school. And I had the privilege of every morning, another student and myself, we would all gather around the flagpole, the whole school. This other student and I would raise Old Glory every morning. After that, one of the students or one of the teachers would say a short prayer. Then we'd go in and do our classes. But now you can't do that. You can't say that prayer in school. And they don't like for you to say the Pledge of Allegiance because it's got the word God in it. They don't like the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts oath has got God in it. But you know, it didn't hurt me one bit. I think if anything, it helped me. But anyway, at that time, I was practicing Americanism. I didn't know it, didn't know what the word meant, never even heard of it. But that's what we were doing. But what is Americanism? It's much more than patriotism, and it's more sincere in attitude than self-righteousness. Americanism is a guardian of our Constitution. It's a driving force behind America's desire to prosper and be a free country. We notice this mostly and intensely love of our country in the eras of crisis. However, this special thing is in our heart. It is something that cannot be whipped up in a moment. It's something that the foremost characteristic of Americanism is a willingness of so many citizens to make sacrifices as individuals for the good of our nation's people by whole. Such unselfish sacrifices are seen through the millions of men and women who have gave their lives in defense of this freedom. As in the Veterans Organization, we know much about this kind of sacrifice. We know it from the testimony of our own lives and the lives of our loved ones. Patriotism is a part of Americanism, but patriotism goes beyond the waving of a flag and the singing of our national anthem. These are important gestures, by sure, but true patriotism, it demands loyalty to the ideals of that lies behind these gestures. It's called for loyalty, for the tradition, and the courage that makes our country great. It is out of patriotism that we express the right we enjoy as Americans. Rights declared in the Declaration of Independence. We practice Americanism wherever you go and vote. That is expressing Americanism. And when we voice our thoughts to our elected representatives, it gives us the courage to say what we believe, even if the words are not popular. It gives us the strength to stand for the defense of our nation and its people, risking disability and even death. We also show Americanism when we take pride in our nation's past and commit ourselves to the nation's future. The DAV, the WW2, and the American Legion are proud to be among these non-profit organizations with a respect that special focus on its veterans and their families. However, if we know how much Americans give to others, how much individuals and thoughts of institutions were created, we also know how seldom these individuals and institutions receives a thank you for their efforts. Americanism is also about feeling. It is a treasure chest in our hearts that flares this great country of ours, America. Each of us practice Americanism every day in our own way. Members of the Veterans Organization practice Americanism through programs of service to their nation and to the veterans. Their hard work has ensured the veteran and all other people that we can enjoy the freedoms that are right for all America. They do this work in the community, in the state level, and in the national. Some of these people show Americanism by doing volunteer work in a VA hospital, in a nursing home, or a clinic, or they give of their time to drive a sick or disabled veteran to a VA medical facility to get treatment for their needs, making a day a little brighter for veterans in need. What wonderful way to show how we feel about our country and its defenders. Other people are finding other ways to take care of veterans and their families in the community by their organizations. The way they do so are so various as the people themselves, doing this great work, but it can be come down to the event of the simplest thing. Maybe it's one veteran helping another veteran to learn how to cope with the life overshadowed by physical and mentally handicapped. Maybe it's a wife or daughter of a veteran offering a kind ear to listen to the trouble of another woman at a different time. Veterans believe it's important to work in the effort to better their community, help their fellow citizens, and build a stronger America. Americanism is down in your soul. It is not born in you, and you cannot learn it out of a book. It's the feeling that you must do and grow with an experience of meaning of America. It grows stronger as we grow older, and the self is a deep desire within our hearts. While our nation's citizens hold a tight spirit on Americanism, its people cannot reach its full potential unless it is practiced. And how can we practice Americanism? There are countless ways. And each American knows best how he or she can show a deeper love for their country. You know, seeing Old Glory raised here today was a good feeling. It was great. You know, the veterans organizations was meeting in Washington to try to get the flag amendment passed. Well, we was defeated. It was defeated by 2 votes. Do you realize how Illinois 2 Congress people voted? They both voted no. Thank God we got rid of one of them. He's a professor now down at the university. But we got another one to take his place, and he's going to vote no also. So it's time that American people get together, especially the senators, and put some of these people out of office. I seen in a magazine not too long ago a picture out in California at a museum. They had a toilet stool sitting there. There was an American flag draped down in it, out and along the floor. Another picture was taken in Chicago at a museum. There they put the American flag down on the floor and you had to walk across it to get in and sign the register. We tried to get this stopped. We couldn't make it. We all know it. We will next time. But you know, as we're here today making this celebration here, there's one group not here with us. I'm speaking of the POWs and MIA. They fought for justice, and yet justice has been denied them. They fought for peace, but there's no peace for their loved ones not knowing. And this is why we must continue to insist on a full accounting of all POWs and MIAs. I ask everywhere I go, I ask people to take 5 or 10 minutes out of their busy schedule to write a letter to their congressmen, to their senators, and yes, even Bill Clinton, and tell them how we feel about this issue. We cannot ever let this issue down. We cannot forget our brothers in arms. So if you got a few minutes, when you get home, write a letter, make a telephone call, let the leaders of this country know we are not going to forget our POWs and MIAs. You know, I'm not going to let Jack get ahead of me. He read a poem. I've got a poem. To me, this poem is great. Listen to the words of it. See how you feel about it. It's entitled, A Message from Our POWs and MIAs. The war is over, so it is said. All the men are home or dead. Don't you know I want to cry that some of us refuses to die? Where are your ears, my countrymen, when refuge tells you the state I'm in? Don't you care that I live in hell with only my soul left to sell? I wonder each and every night how much longer I can fight. It's not easy to survive when your country leaves you alive. I watch friends die one by one. Despair killed them. They died abandoned, forgotten, and alone because no one cared to bring them home. I too may find freedom on some special day, but you, my friends, will never be free knowing that you have deserted me. God bless American veterans, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
MIA license plate. He's the one that helped design it. And it'll be out, I think he told me, the 12th of next month. So whenever you see a POW MIA license plate going down the road, think of Bill. He's the man behind it. Okay, at this time I'm calling on my post commander, Lily Bates. We're going to honor Mom. Lily, Mom's right up there, just right ahead. Mom is 102 years young. last July, I believe. Son and daughter, let's give her a big support. Now I'm going to call on the ladies auxiliary president of the post to introduce the lady here.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be out here. Don't we have a beautiful day? And I am honored. Now, our oldest member, Mark Auxiliary, Mark Martin, 47 years member, and she will present tonight. She is also a Gold Star winner. Very proud of her. Marge has been with the auxiliary, and she is one of our most active members. She always takes care of our girls' stage, and sees that we have one, and one every year. I don't know what we do without Marge. Marge, would you please present?
At this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Adam Parson, retired Lieutenant Colonel, to dedicate the monument here.
That you fellows feel like you have to fall out and fall back into
it. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, what wonderful speeches we've heard already. This seems to sink in and make us more patriotic. Now, the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., as well as the forthcoming World War II Memorial, were both long overdue. This memorial monument, which is being unveiled and dedicated today, was also a long time in coming and is becoming a reality, but not for the same reason as the Korean and the World War II. But today, the 13th of September, 1997, it is a reality, due to the efforts of persons like Ali DeLoria, Mike DeLoria, Mickey Aldridge, John and Mary Ann Kennedy, Betty and Wendell Kaiser, and Mildred and Merton Wheeler. These individuals were behind this project and spearheaded the program from beginning to end. In other words, from A to Z. This monument here will be a lasting tribute to everyone, those living and those who have died, who had a part in the history of George Field. This includes those who were in the planning, designing, and construction of the field, to include infrastructure, runways, roads, the hangar, control tower, and all the buildings that were necessary to complete the makings of an Army Air Corps base and an advanced flying school. In addition, this monument represents a tribute to all personnel, civilian and military, who worked here in those jobs which were necessary to instruct and train the 19 classes of students in the skills required to turn them into the professionals they had to be to meet the challenge of defending these United States from the tyranny and aggression facing us from the east and from the west, namely Germany and Japan. Hundreds of thousands of servicemen died in the pursuit of their sworn duty in World War II. Tens and tens of thousands were killed during the Korean and Vietnam conflict. Many of those passed through George Field were involved in one or two or three of these conflicts. Many came through the battles unscathed. Others were wounded, and even today bear the scars and the pain they received during the conflict or conflicts involved. We who are standing here today are all survivors, not of the war itself, but also life itself. And I know for that we are grateful. George Field, during the period of 16 October 1942 to January 1946, carved itself a niche in the history of the United States Army Air Corps. During this period, there were 19 classes of cadets and student officers who were awarded their pilot wings. Also, hundreds of troop carrier pilots received their transition training in C-47 and also in the CG-4A glider. Again, I'll repeat that this monument is a tribute to the thousands who trained, were trained, or operated the base. It will also be a permanent reminder to those of us who are here, even as visitors, to share this moment, knowing that George Field, known today as the Mid-American Air Center, will live on as a memory and in the memory of every individual who was involved during its 4 years and 3 months of operation. May we now please have the unveiling of the monument. Thank you very much. As a solemn and lasting tribute for those for whom George Field, during his existence, was part of their life, I will now have Callie call for an individual, a family member, a relative or friend representing one of the following units to come forward and place a flag in the wreath as an acknowledgement of their part in the history of George Field. If you so desire, it would be appropriate to salute after placing the flag in the wreath. Callie?
Our representative for the civilian personnel. Nova, are you here? Nova works in the PX at George Field. Her and her husband has been to all 6 reunions, and we prize them and thank them for coming and joining us every year. She was a former local girl. Enlisted personnel, Melba's husband, Charles Lasky. Charles met Melba at George Field and stole her away from us and went back to Connecticut. Next we have the instructors who trained the who instructed the cadets in their pilot training. Buell Kreider, are you here? Ruth Carol Zimmer is going to represent the whites. You may not believe this, but we had 155 WACs in the first group that came in during 1943 when we had the flood. Next, we'll start with our first class of cadets, 42K, Raymond Miller. few vacant seats, but we have people who are filling in these vacant seats. Class 43A will be Wendell Kaiser. Class 43B, Harry Swift. And Harry did graduate in Class 43B. Harry is going to substitute for Class 43C. Harry, Class 43C. No, we're all right, Mickey.
Oh, okay.
Give him the flag.
I didn't realize it.
Same step, no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Harry. Class 43D. Buell Kreider graduated in Class 43D and also came back to Georgefield as an instructor. So he's hanging 2 flags, which he served in both categories. Adam Parsons, Class 43E. Class 43H will be represented by Paul Stillion. Class 43I, Bill Blocker. I got to tell you a little story about Bill. When we told him Mom was 102, he thought we were only kidding. 43J, Al Permenter. .43K, Raymond Miller from California. Raymond has been here so many times, and he just didn't remember where they graduated. And I said, in Lawrenceville, Illinois, at the high school football field. Jack Kennedy, Class 44A. Jack is Vice President of our organization. Jack flew B-24 and was also in Stalag Luft 3. Reverend Kimball is going to substitute for us in Class 44B. This guy is always faithful for us each and every year. All I have to do is call up and say, Rosie needs you, and he comes forward every time. And thank you, Colonel Kimball. Class 44C, Jack is going to substitute for that one. Class 44D, Joe Wiggins. Joe, do you live in Ohio or Florida? Ohio. I couldn't remember.
almost finished.
You know,
I'm trying to, but I'm getting other people's
Dante
rights.
Ferreira, class 44E.
So I have a jumpy.
okay. I'm gonna stop it and you take it. We finished it.
This way.
Dante is going to do class 44F. Class 44G, Raymond Dan. Class 44G graduated. Is the last class, August the 4th, 1944. After the last class of graduating in August of 1944, Troop Carrier, 805th, came in and took over the field for the next few months until the field closed. The 805th Troop Carrier representative is Al Roberts. Our last flag dedication will be to the deceased, and it will be concluded by Wendell Kaiser.
Gentlemen, the dedication of this George Field monument.
Wait a minute,
Now,
Adam, I'm sorry.
as I said, the flags represent many thousands of lives.
And I read a year ago when I've been asked to get it strictly pertains to American ex-prisoners of war and to any man or woman who served in combat during any of our wars. I'd like for you all to take a good look at that flag. But after the topic to this is what do you think of our flag? You recognize the stars and stripes, but is it doing anything for you? Are you angered when you see it defiled or ridiculed? Does your heart beat when you behold it unfurled in the breeze? Or is patriotism perhaps like religion? You don't know if you've got it until you need it. I was once a young American too, and no more or less patriotic than you. I pledged allegiance to the flag, and I sang the Star-Spangled Banner as best as I could. That wasn't until Hitler raised a heavy hand and smashed this bill into the heart of Europe, until Japan directed a savage attack on our shores. Then I was catapulted into a wartime world I could never have imagined. I became a soldier, sailor, an airman, a marine. My brother, my buddy, and I followed that flag as it billowed against the gray of the sky and sea and battlefield. We saw the colors ground into the sands of North Africa, shredded on the coral of Corregidor, bloodied on Omaha Beach. My brother raised that flag on the Iwo Jima. My buddy cried when he sighted the flag flying over the England air base as he and too few of his brothers returned from the Schreiber race. A brother kept his eye on the tattered flag from battle to battle until battles were no more. And for a buddy, it was the last blanket to cover his body before it was buried in corn soil or slipped into a watery grave. And I watched our flag until it was no longer there to watch. I parachuted from a flaming plane over Germany, surrendered to an overpowering army on Bataan. I was marched along at bayonet point. I was transported like an animal to a gulag, to a jungle camp. Guarded, taunted, barricaded, I was a prisoner of war. For days, months, and year after endless years. I existed on the flag. What my captains failed to realize is that although they shaved my head, scarred my body, deprived my soul, and denied me basic human rights, an American flag fluttered on in my heart. Pride in what the red, white, and blue stand for buoyed my spirit. God watched over me. My compatriots sustained me, and I survived. Can you imagine what a blessed, beautiful sight that flag was to me when I viewed it at last in New York or San Francisco? Well, that flag waved to me from sea to shining sea, beckoning me back to my farm, my shop, my career, my family. That flag cried out to me, look, look, I'm still flying. And I always will. I did look, I wept. I thank the Lord for turning me home to this good land. Now all my friends, will you do something for me? Take another look at that flag. Here. And don't ever forget what that flag stands for. I would just like to, at this time, over to ask how many ex-prisoners of war we do have at this today. You raise your hand. Curiosity. We thank you.
Korea Memorial in Washington, D.C. We have the gentleman here in our crowd today design the Korean pin that raised thousands of dollars to help build that memorial. Lord Jack Cole. This time I'd like for everyone to join in with the Ladies Auxiliary and saying God Bless America.
No music to this, so we're going to attempt it a cappella. We've never done it before, so join in so that you won't know our mistakes. Hopefully I'll start you out on a decent key. I can't sing God Bless America in the high key, so I have to start a bit low. Wish us all luck. God bless America.
When that I love, stand beside her
and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains, through the prairie, through the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. We did good. Give us a hand.
Look at all the mistakes you made. Now I have a little story I'd like to read to you. How soon some forget that the battle of freedom are won at a great price. We remember with gratitude and mourn the loss of our brave comrades who gave their lives in service to their country. But also we must not forget the families, the friends that they left behind, the sorrow, the pain, the losses, the memories that will never, never fade away. This time I'm going to call on Howard Foley, Foley Post 30, to give the benediction.
Grant us thy blessing, O God, leave this place, the faith of thy spirit will possess. I sent you to your opponent, to the end, that we will be according to will. And now, dear Heavenly Father, as we go our separate ways, we ask Thee to help us guide us through all the coming days. Be with us, safely lead us down the service way. Thank Thee for Thy loving care, and will help to lighten the road. We thank Thee for Thy blessing. Go with us as we part. Each one safely home and lighten every heart. Amen.
Spartan squad, ready! Aim! March!
I just want you to stand by the reef. We trained in South Carolina. Oh. Same type of a base.
The plane graduated in 44C. He flew down and got here in time for the final part of the ceremony. Another plane load that flew down when he heard it. There's our cake for the reunion, 6 George Field Reunion.
Bless those who have not been able to be with us. Bless us all, that we may return safely to our homes. We ask your blessing upon the food which has been prepared for our bodies, that we may continue to serve both you and our nation. These things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Our guest speaker that night was Charles W. Cyberly, who was the founder of the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And at that time, he was perhaps just a little older, around the same age as we were. So Shorty Fulton said, you know, you just had a very, very successful football season, and you're sitting on top of the world. You're like men, ready to go out and conquer the world. He says, but actually, in comparison to our speaker, you're just infants. He's an adult. And he said, I'll bet my last dollar that you fellas in your infancy don't have as much fun as he has in his adultery. Now, all of you acknowledge that you're having fun in your adults. After all these years, 55 years, I got the answer to my question. You know, we're happy tonight to have distinguished and honored guests with us. Our guest speaker will be introduced in a little while. But I'm directing this to Mom. And we all know Mom. Where is your friend in Columbus, Mom? Do you know where he's at? Well, the reason I ask her because Ohio has one of the largest state fairs in the country. And during the course of the fairs, there's always people walking around to watch that there's no gambling, no mugging, no purse snatching. There's sheriff's deputies, policemen, plainclothesmen, and the like. And these two detectives from the Columbus Police Force walked up and saw this one fellow, beautiful stand, selling the elixir of youth, guaranteed to keep you young. He was selling bottle after bottle, and the line was deep, about 100 people in line, each one shelling out $10. You guys, boy, what a racket. So let's buy a bottle and get it analyzed. So they did buy a bottle, took it down to the police laboratories, had it analyzed, and found out actually it was nothing but distilled water and a little coloring. So they immediately said, we'll get it. The next day they waited until he set up the stand, and when he sold his first bottle, they arrested him. Took him down to the police station, booked him for deception, fraud, whatever you have. So they said, well, while he's here, let's just find out. Now, this happened last year. Let's find out if he has any prior arrests. So they ran a check on him and found out that he had been arrested 14 times. 14 times for the same thing. The first time was in 1852, the next time was 1858. Mom, where is he?
He never sold me anything because I don't take anybody.
You know, it's nice to have a little bit of levity. And what I want to say is something that happened here, and this is an Irish story. Now this could go either way. It could be either a man or a woman. I'll select a man, but not because of preference, but because that's the way I heard it. This fellow was visiting the gravesite of a friend of his who had died a couple of years earlier. And as he walked through the cemetery, he passed a fellow who was on his knees over a grave sobbing. Why did you die? Why did you die? Oh, why did you die? And he was in very, very emotional distress. So the fellow felt sorry for him and kept on walking. After he visited his friend's grave site, he came back and the fellow was still there. Why did you die? Why? Tears were coming down his face. So the fellow put his arm on the bereaved fellow and said, I'm sorry you're taking it so hard. It must be someone very close to you. And who was it? He said, I don't know. I never met him. He said, well, who was it? He said, my wife's first husband.
I passed everything that I got my eyes. And the flight surgeon came in after taking my eye test. I could tell immediately that something was wrong. He said, Morgan, days there were no waivers or anything else. Couldn't wear glasses. And he saw I was kind of disappointed, so he said, wait a minute, I'll be back in about a few minutes. So he came back in about 5 minutes, had an ice bag in his hand. He took the ice bag and he placed it over my left eye. And he said, hold that over there for 10 minutes and I'll be back. He came back, gave me the eye exam, and passed me. That was my first lucky. So I went home, this was in December of 1940, and waited to be called. Well, it didn't come. I got naturally impatient since I knew I was going. And for the only time in my military career, I used political pull. My dad was a good friend of General Bob Reynolds, who was head of the Military Affairs Committee in Washington, D.C. in the Senate. I said, Dad, can't you call him up and get me speeded up a little bit? He called him. 10 days later, I got my orders. Well, it's only that. And I went to Camden, South Carolina. That's where I took my primary school in early 1941. And it was civilian training. All the instructors were civilian. We only had 2 military men on the base, one in charge and one in charge of operations. Well, I went through primary. I must say that the first 2 or 3 rides that my instructor gave me were very interesting. He took me up, he did spins, slow rolls, snap rolls, and I tell you what, when I got back down on the ground, I wasn't quite sure this was for Bob Morton. And I thought, you know, I can't quit, I gotta stick it out. Well, he saw that I was, so next time he did it a little slower, a little easier. And we got along pretty good, but it took me a long time to solo. Matter of fact, it took me 7.5 hours. And that's flying time now. Anyway, I wasn't doing too well according to his way of looking, so he called me one day and he said, Bob, meet me outside the hangar tonight. Well, you know, people meet you outside the woodshed or something like that, but this was outside the hangar. So I came out and Earl said, look, Morgan, he said, you know how I learned to fly? He said, I hung around Airfield. And I didn't have any money. These guys would take me up, they'd show me this and that and the other. Then I'd go home and I'd get on my back porch of my farm, my family's farm, I'd take a broomstick. He said, try all the maneuvers. He said, that's the way I learned to fly. And here the Air Force is going to spend $50,000. That's a lot of money those days, still is. But to teach you to fly, I don't think you appreciate it. He woke me up. I said, yes, sir, I'll get all the balls. And I did, and I got through. Well, another little incident happened to me right there. We finished primary, all our records had been sent to Augusta Field, Bush Field, Augusta, Georgia, for basic. And the lieutenant called me in, he said, Morton, we made a mistake in your record. You're 30 minutes short of flight time, and we've already set your record down there. You got to go up and fly 30 more minutes. Well, beautiful day. Nobody's flying, just me. I went out and got in that steerman, which is a wonderful airplane. Got to have been foolproof if I got through it. But I went up and I was flying around, you know, just a lovely afternoon in June. And I came back, I was just about finished getting ready to land. I saw those beautiful airplanes lined up and down the road there. I said, I think I'll just go down a little lower. I went down and buzzed those airplanes. Well, I had a reception committee when I got down. The lieutenant was right there. He said, Morgan, he had already set your records to Bush Field. I'd wash you out right now. And you gentlemen know what washing out. Well, I got lucky again. Went on to Bush Field, got through Bush pretty good. Now, in those days, I don't know whether you cadets, when you went through basic, had the same enjoyment, but they gave us a choice after basic, if we wanted to go to fighters or bombers. And I chose bombers. And everybody in my hometown of Asheville, North Carolina, couldn't figure out why Bob Morgan was a big bomber. They said he used to drive his daddy's Buick at 110 miles an hour around the mountains and all that. How would he get bombers instead of one of those fighters? I had a couple of reasons. First place, I was a lousy navigator. I found out the railroad tracks had ended and I couldn't get home again. And they didn't have interstates. So I thought I needed a navigator up there with me to tell me where to go and how to get back. Second reason, I didn't want to be up there by myself. So that's why I chose bombers. Well, then they sent us to Barksdale Field, Shreveport, Louisiana, which was a regular Army Air Corps base at that time, one of the old ones. Well, you never saw such a conglomeration of bombers in your life. Some of them I'm sure that you'll have to go back to books to buy. B-11s, B-12s, B-13s, A-7. I mean, they were something. And the instructors were not much better than the airplane. We did have one interesting airplane at that time, down there, called the Lockheed Hudson. Now, the Lockheed Hudson was a twin-engine airplane, but they had a very difficult thing to train in because they only had one set of controls. Now, you cadets can imagine training in a twin-engine with only one set of controls. Either the instructor or you were going to get in a fight before it's over with. Well, and it was a kind of a funny airplane to land at ground loop very, very easy. And we lost a few of them. But I managed to get through, and 5 days after Pearl Harbor, our graduation came up. And the flight surgeon, I had to take a pistol again. He caught my eye. He said, "Morgan, what's the story?" I said, I told him the whole story. He laughed. He said, that's good. He said, "I don't believe the story." He said, "You did it," but he said, "I think that flight surgeon was just using that to get you passed." But anyway, he said, "Look," he said, "I'll do one of two things. I'll wash you out, so you can go back and make $12,000 and be a civilian instructor, or you can go on, I'll pass you, go on." I said, "We got this far, and might as well go on." So I got my second lieutenant bars, and I was then transferred to McDill Field, Tampa, Florida, where I spent many a fine day. You know, we got to McDill in late December of 42, 41, and they had Lockheed Hudsons again. And they asked us to fly submarine patrol in the Gulf of Mexico. They said there were going to be submarines in there. Well, we flew a lot of submarine patrol. We never saw the Gulf. And it was kind of fun flying around lazy days. One afternoon I had a very interesting experience. I came down over St. Petersburg Beach, beautiful Sunday afternoon, and a great big crowd down there on the beach. Evidently having a good time. And I don't know, the devil got a hold of me. And I decided to go down and buzz him. And I did. I buzzed him 2 or 3 times. We were pretty low. Well, I went in next Monday morning, and the operations officer said, "The squadron commander would like to see you, Morgan." Went in, squadron commander said, "General Olds would like to see you, Morgan." So I went over to General Olds. I never had the pleasure of meeting the general before. And walked in, and he looked up at me, and he said, "Morgan, were you flying Lockheed Hudson number so-and-so yesterday afternoon over St. Petersburg Beach?" "Yes, sir." He said, "And did you buzz a cocktail party that I was at?" "Yes, sir." He hadn't smiled yet. He said, "Morgan," he said, "if we hadn't spent so much time put you as far as you're here now, and we need pilots," he said, "I'd kick you out of the Army Air Corps immediately." But he said, "I'll tell you one thing. If I have my way, you'll be a second lieutenant this whole war." "Yes, sir." Now that. Well, they brought in some B-24s, gentlemen, I want you to know. And I flew them for 60 hours. And they had orders cut for me to go to Africa in the B-24. Well, you won't say that the B-24 men won't agree with me, but I was lucky. The day before we were getting ready to leave, they pulled the pilots off of the B-24s, moved the co-pilots over and gave them new co-pilots. They went to Africa. And a week later, they brought in B-17. Well, I've got to say, and I have, you admit this, gentlemen, you B-24 people. 17's a hell of a lot prettier airplane. It looks like it wants to fly. It really does. Anyway, we started training in 17, and I had another one of those incidents. We were doing cross countries in those days, getting used to traveling around the country, flying formation. You could go anywhere you wanted to in the United States, but you couldn't land. You had to come back. Well, I took a little trip up North Carolina way, where I was from, Asheville, and flew over the city and the town, and that devil got a hold of me again. And I landed on a 3,800-foot runway, which was a lot shorter than we were using at McDill, and I burned out the brakes. And I had to pick up the telephone, call back the squadron, tell the squadron commander that what I'd done. And after he got through saying a few choice words, he said, "We'll send up a crew to get you and put on new brakes." So they did. Went back, he never said a word. And first part of July, we were going to be transferred to Walla Walla, Washington for finished to her final stage training. And I went into the squadron, looked up there in the blackboard, and everybody had their airplane assigned to them. My name wasn't on it. So I went to operations officer, I said, what airplane am I flying? He said, you talk to the squadron commander. Went in to talk to the squadron commander. He said, Morgan? Yes, sir. He said, you asking what airplane you're flying? Do you remember that little incident up in Asheville, North Carolina, when you burned out those brakes? You're not flying an airplane. You're taking a troop train to Walla Walla, Washington. Well, I guess I was the only pilot that ever rode a troop train one in the country to the other. I had a good time. We shot crap and dice and had a good time. Went to Walla Walla, we trained. I was in Walla Walla. Our flight surgeon's wife had her sister come out to Walla Walla. And I was introduced to her. I met her. I liked her. We started dating. She was from Memphis, Tennessee. After our training in Walla Walla, we got brand new B-17Fs, and we took them to Bangor, Maine, where was our jump-off point to England, and we had shakedown flights around the country. And everybody started naming their airplane. People started putting names on, painting girls, and pictures, and all sorts of things. And our crew had a discussion about this, and we had 10 men on that crew, and we had 10 different ideas. My idea was to call it the Memphis Belle. Naturally, dating a girl in Memphis, that's logical. They didn't agree. Anyway, we decided to postpone the decision till the next day, and that night, two things happened. I went to a movie with my co-pilot, and we saw Joan Blondell in the movie that they called her the Memphis Belle. And Jim said something about the bell, and I said, well, I've been trying to tell you guys the Memphis Belle. That passed over. But I also went out that night with a tail gunner. And we had a few beers. And I said, tomorrow, would you mind kind of voting with me? He said, yes. Next day, we had two for the Memphis Belle, 8 other different names. That named the Memphis Belle. A gentleman named Petty was drawing beautiful girls in Esquire magazine, and Esquire is still made today with still beautiful girls in there. I called Petty on the phone and told him what I wanted. He sent me a beautiful color painting of a beautiful girl. We had an artist in our group who painted it on there, and that's how the airplane got named the Memphis Belle. We also took a trip to Memphis, broke a bottle of champagne over the nose, and christened it in Memphis. We then took off for England, the northern route, off of Newfoundland, Gander, across the North Sea, North Atlantic. We got to England safely in October of 42, and I just talked to a gentleman tonight who was there ahead of us. There was one group got there ahead of us. They'd run one raid. Now you got to get the picture. You gentlemen that have been there, I don't have to tell you all can be excused. But here we were, going to do daylight strategic bombing. And the British said no. Winston Churchill to see if he could persuade them to let us do it. The British wanted us to go bomb at night with them and do their type of bombing. He got permission. And we started in November of our daylight strategic bombing. Now, nobody had written a book about daylight strategic bombing. The generals didn't know any more than, I was still a second lieutenant, by the way. Nobody had written a book. So we started trial by air. Different kinds of formations, all sorts of things. We ran 2 missions at high altitude, 25 to 27,000 feet. And we did a fair job of bombing, nothing spectacular. The generals then decided they'd try a very different type of mission. And we were going, we've been down to the St. Nazaire submarine pens. That was our main thing, to try to knock out the submarine pens, our first few missions. We've been there once, and they said, well, let's try going down on the water, right on the deck. Stay under the radar, fool the Germans, pull up at the last minute. We'll be out of there before they know we're there. Wrong. Germans had the same flight plan. We got to live in daylight knocked out of us that day. I lost my squadron commander that day, and we lost 3 other airplanes in our squadron, and the losses were high. It didn't work. They didn't ever try it again either. But that's the kind of thing we had to go through with trial and error. There were some great men over there trying to get this done. Doolittle happened to be one of them. He was one of the ones that got the formations in different segments and different echelons, and to try to get the firepower out there. The whole secret of bomber fighters, kids fighters, is that tight formation. When I say tight, I was a flight leader, and I had my wingman, there were many times they were overlapping the edge of my wing. And that's how tight it was. But that was the whole idea. Get that firepower out there with those fighters coming in would really help us. Now people say, well, where was your fighter escort? Well, the only fighter escort we had was German. The British Spitfires had come to the French coast with us and played bye-bye. They didn't have the range, you couldn't go. I mean, I'm not blaming them, they couldn't. So we had both the fighters and the flak. And believe me, they were both tough, as many of you can agree with me, I'm sure. Somebody said, what was the worst, the fighters or the flak? They were both there. I mean, that's 30 seconds or 45 seconds, and that minute over the target seemed like an hour. The German flag was so dead. Well, our losses in the 91st Bomb Group were high. In the first 3 months, we lost 80% of the crews that flew the North Atlantic. Now you can imagine what the morale was around us. That's when the generals put out that carrot in front of us and said, if you finish 25 missions, you can go home. Well, for many of us wondered about that 25 missions, never getting it. And to say the morale was the greatest. But in the middle of this, along came a gentleman by the name of William Wyler. William Wyler happened to be a famous Hollywood movie director. At that time, he made one great movie that I remember very well, Ms. Miniver, and got an Oscar for it and all that. He was a major in the Army Air Corps film unit. And he came along and he came up to me one day and said, could I fly with you on a few missions? I said, we have no objection as long as you stay out of the way of the gunners. He ended up flying 5 missions. And we didn't know what he got the cameras with him and he was taking this film and we had no idea what they were going to do with the film. We guessed, we said, oh well, he's going to make a film to take back to the training command so they could show those guys in training command what combat's about. I said, you better not take it back to training command and we won't have any pilots coming over here. But that was what we thought. He also gave out 200 16mm cameras to crew members in other airplanes and told them if they weren't shooting their guns or they had some time to take film. And before he finished, he had over 1,000 feet of film. It was fantastic. He was a great guy. We were crazy about him. He did stay out of our way. But seeing him run all that airplane with a camera, with the oxygen bottle in one hand and the camera in the other, it was a real sight. I mean, I admired him. He didn't have guns to shoot or a job to do, but take pictures. And he was kind of a daring person. Well, it's obvious, or I wouldn't be standing here, that we got through the 25th mission. When we landed after that 25th mission, he came running up to us. He didn't go on the 25th with us. He came running up to me and said, Bob, I got news for you. I said, well, what's news? We didn't care about anything. We knew we were going home to get ice cream and hot dogs and all that. And that was all that mattered. He said, I got news for you. This movie I've been making, this documentary is going to be called The Memphis Belle. And I said, that's very nice. It didn't mean it really anything to me or the rest of the group. Then I thought about it a minute. I turned around and I said, Bill, what would have happened if we got shot out on this 25th mission? He said, oh, I have a backup. He did. It was an airplane called Hell's Angel. And the airplane crew hadn't all finished 25th birthday yet, but the airplane had. And that airplane would come back, and the movie was a bit called Hell's Angels. And Hell's Angels pilot been sitting up here talking to you tonight. That didn't turn out that way. We were very lucky. But when we flew those 25th missions, we got shut up bad. And here's the thing that I always try to get across to people. A bomber pilot does not have control to do a lot of things like a fighter pilot. We have to fly formation. We absolutely can never leave the formation unless we got hit, we got lost an engine, we have to turn back and leave. We have to stay in formation, because that was the whole secret, as I've said before. So, every crew was trained the same. All of us. So, a bomber crew that finished 25 missions is no better than a bomber crew that didn't finish 25 missions. We were just damn lucky. You can't be up there and lose your right wing twice, which I did, lose my left wing man once, who's other members out of my squadron, and I was a flight leader all the time, and still put it anywhere with faith or reason that we came out. Nothing for our credit. We were lucky. We were lucky. That's the whole secret of that. We got shot up a lot. There's no question about it. I lost 4 feet of my right wing one time. I lost 3.5 feet of the tail stabilizer once. Had 8 engines shot out during the 25 missions. And I only had 1 crew member slightly injured with a scratch just above his knee with a piece of flak that I got taken to needles and done worse damage. No, you can't explain it. And incidentally, just for your information, I was halfway through my tour of 25 missions, and I was still a second lieutenant. And I was the only flight leader in the 8th Air Force as a second lieutenant. General Olds had done his work well. But shortly after I lost our squadron commander and they started searching around, they started going through the papers in the office, and they found 2 promotion slips in the squadron commander's desk, one to his first lieutenant, one to captain, and they both had been stuck under the papers way down. Anyway, inside of 2.5 weeks later, I was promoted twice, but I ended up being a captain coming home. Well, we flew back across the North Atlantic, brought the airplane home, and started on what the generals call our 26th mission. They said, go home, tell the American public what a great job they're doing. Tell those people at the factories and the plants how we appreciate it. It's a public relations tour. We want you to go on for 3 months around the country. Well, we were glad to do that, no question about it. But that was a 26th mission. I got to tell you a couple things about that 3 months. We came into Washington, D.C. That was our first point to land after we got back. Called in for landing instructions. I'm sure many of you have been to the Washington National Airport. And they gave me landing instructions, and we knew that General Arnold was going to be there, the Commanding General of the Army Air Corps, and the Secretary of State and a few other dignitaries. So we were trying to do everything just proper. The tower gave me landing instructions, and then they said, General Arnold has ordered you to buzz the field. Well, he didn't know who he was talking to. And if any of you remember the old building at the Washington National, there's a balcony out there in the front where the spectators used to come out and watch airplanes come in and go out. That's where all the dignitaries were standing. And I headed right for them. And they ducked. Well, we came into Landis and we got over, all the dignitaries came around, shake our hand. Joe Arnold was a very serious sort of man. He didn't usually smile very much. Came up to me and had a slight grin on his face, shook my hand. He said, "Morgan, that was a hell of a buzz job." You know what he told me? He says, "On this 3-month tour around the United States, you can buzz any place you want to." I had a lot of fun. If you go down to Asheville, North Carolina, that was one of our stops going around the country. You'll hear a lot of people, the old timers down there, remembered how I buzzed. There's a building, the courthouse, and the city hall, which right up downtown on a little plateau. And as we were getting ready to leave Asheville, I'd already run some people off the golf course out there. We decided I decided at the last minute to pull up, go right between those two buildings, the city hall and the courthouse. Well, I had to get to 60-degree bank or I couldn't get through. My wife had measured the distance between them and said, "There's no way you get off through straight and level." I couldn't. But they're still talking about it down there, and I understand that some artist is getting ready to make a painting and we going to the city hall and the courthouse. But we had a lot of fun. It was enjoyable. We were wined and dined. We flew around the country. Incidentally, we have a mascot. My co-pilot had bought a Scotty dog in England. That Scotty went with us everywhere. Didn't go on any German missions, but he went everywhere on that 26 mission all around the United States. As my co-pilot said, that Scotty